I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Matt Henderson. I'm be your host for our Fuel for Thought episode. If you want to learn more about the clean energy manufacturing project, I would encourage you to go to our website at wemakeithere.org. This recording of today's webinar, as well as past episodes, will be listed on that website, as well as a lot more informational flyers, contact information to your local MEP, as well as online resources, assessments, and some toolkits that we have developed. So today we're excited to learn more about battery and energy storage supply chain. We have with us, two of the experts in the field, Ray Strauss, who is a principal consultant with the Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology, and John Cervini, the Director of Resource Development with New York BEST. I know I'm excited about this because, when we talk about building out domestic supply chain, this project is specifically what we need and what they're doing. So, based in New York, but as they were talking, and we see if you explore the website a lot more, it's a regional or statewide initiatives or Appalachia-wide initiatives where companies from outside of New York can take advantage of it as well. So with that, Ray and John, I'd like to again thank you for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to you. And one last reminder, if anybody does have some questions, please enter those in the chat box at the bottom or top of your screen. And also, if you could introduce yourself with the organization, that might help John and Ray with any specific comments. So John, I'll turn it over to you and thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. It's really a pleasure to be here and to share some information about the project that we're a part of that we call New Energy New York, that from the name you'll recognize is focused on the state of New York, but really has a regional and national impact. And we're delighted to be able to share some information today here. I'll kick things off. Maybe brief introductions. I'm John Cervini. My day job, I work for what's called New York BEST, the New York Battery and Energy Storage Technology Consortium. We're an industry association in New York State. We've been around since 2011. So we're really in our 14th year of existence. I've been there most of that time, actually 13, almost 14 years myself. So focused on growing opportunities for batteries and energy storage in the footprint of New York State. The gist of our presentation today and the main focus is about the project is called New Energy New York. So the logo on my shirt and the logo on the screen right now match, and that's the program that is funded by the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And my partner Ray Strauss is here as part of the team. And Ray, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, just as a brief introduction, I'm with Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology. It's the MEP for the southern tier of New York. We're broken up, I believe, similar to Pennsylvania, where you have regional MEPs. I was brought on, I come from manufacturing my whole career, running some pretty large manufacturing operations internationally and domestically, where they wanted a MEP partner to be part of the New Energy New York supply chain team. And so I've been doing this for about a year and a half and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Ray. So if you could, Ray, you've got charge of the slides here. So if you could forward, brief introduction. So our agenda for the day, really we'll talk about the New Energy New York program and the components of that program, and then some associated efforts that have come online since the kickoff of this about 2 years ago. In particular, we'll talk about the supply chain team that I lead. We're one of the component projects of New Energy New York, and then go kind of a deeper dive into battery and energy storage systems as we've done our work and from the history of knowing companies in the state and in the region. We have a really strong play around building and the components and all of the materials that go into building large-scale battery energy storage systems. So think containers full of batteries and controls and associated hardware and air conditioning and those kinds of opportunities. We'll talk about that. And then finally, a message about one piece of our effort, which is the supply chain database, and encourage everyone here who has interest to take a look at that and sign up. It's all free. So quickly introducing the concept, all the fuss about batteries, a lot of this came about through some analysis that has been done in recent years that, really looks at the batteries that drive our economy, that run everything that we use. Essentially, the vast majority of those batteries, 90% plus, and in some cases even higher than that for component materials, come from China. And so there's been a strong desire in this country to reshore and bring that capability for making batteries and systems based on those batteries back to our shores and back to our states. We are centrally part of that effort. And as you can see from this map, the eastern US has received a lot of the investments that have come out as part of things like the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the funding that was unleashed. So some really great opportunities. New Energy New York is one of those programs. The Economic Development Administration, which is part of the Department of Commerce, had a thing called the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. They announced it about 3 years ago. We partnered, New York Best, that is, partnered with Binghamton University, and Binghamton submitted a proposal that included a coalition of players with the goal of making New York into a leading place to do manufacturing. The coalition you can see here, the initial coalition of 16 members, includes universities, community organizations, organizations like mine, New York Best, and with Ray, Alliance for Manufacturing Technology, really a variety of organizations that all bring something to the table. And ultimately, we were selected and awarded from the feds $63 million from the U.S. Economic Development Administration that was then matched by $50 million from the state of New York for a set of programs that are these initiatives. So the Battery New York Technology Manufacturing Center is a facility that's being built just outside of Binghamton, New York, and it is a pilot manufacturing line. The purpose is to be able to have, if you're at a stage of development with batteries where you've proven your concept, you've built cells at a pilot, prototyping facility, and you have enough cells to have had testing done and prove that it's worthwhile. Quite often, the next thing that happens when a customer gets interested is they ask for thousands of cells, especially if you're in the automotive business. You need to produce and deliver thousands of cells for qualification and certification testing. That is a very difficult order. So sometimes, in many cases, the gap is hard to overcome for early stage companies, for new entrants in the field. This facility will be one of the places, will be the place in the US where you can get cells made at that kind of level of production. The other purpose for the center, importantly, is to add capabilities around process development. So manufacturing processes, if you have a new method to make and coat electrodes or to dry those electrodes as part of a battery making process, you can try out that equipment at scale in a facility that is purpose designed to allow you to do that. Supply chain development is the team that I lead. There are 5 of us on the team that work with our manufacturing companies in the state to understand what they really do and where they are and how they can fit into a supply chain for batteries and energy storage products. We've been out and met with a lot of folks and make introductions and connections all the time. It's been really, I'll say this, in my history with New York Best, I've done a lot of different things and worked with early stage companies, have helped work on policy issues. This work with manufacturing community has been really rewarding and one that feels like we have some really good traction on making some headway. Workforce development. Nothing happens without the right people. So having a set of programs and trainings available and the services that are needed to get people into those programs is a part of what we're all about. Equity and justice is really looking at, in the past, energy production and some of the heavy industry that supported it did some damage to communities. Southern Tier has got its share of, Superfund sites. And where our focus here is to make sure we don't ever create more of those and that we actually help clean up and remediate and bring value into those communities that may be reduced. Innovation and entrepreneurship, US has continuously, I would say, led the world in innovation around batteries and energy storage. The difference is that a lot of times those innovations get to a certain stage and they go off here, and to create the jobs that flow from the integration of the innovation side and manufacturing. I won't go into the detail here. This just basically paints a picture that says Binghamton University and our partnerships, all of the coalitions have been very successful at capturing and attracting federal funding. So you can see the totals here and more to come. But the coalition has grown from its original 16 partners to 70 plus partners when you kind of roll up these projects together. It is a national hub for battery manufacturing, and these programs help to really cement that idea. Here's just a little more detail, and these slides will be made available. A whole array of programs and component elements that add up to basically, so if you come up with a good idea, we want to make it so that that idea happens here in the region, here in our area, and then is carried through. So we carry you through those kind of valleys of death that occur throughout this process, and trying to put the support and the funding and the mechanisms in place that end up with fully baked, fully made, ready products that are then in the marketplace and solve our larger clean energy challenges. This is just a little more detail on the picture in New York State with the expanded partnerships. You can see there are kind of anchor universities that are part of this. There are New York Best, we have a test lab in Rochester. RIT has a battery prototyping and battery testing center. There are really great resources in place to support all of the pieces of that continuum that goes from invention and idea all the way through to high volume production. Supply chain program. Quickly, this is a picture of the team. Ray and I are here today. We're joined on the team by members from Binghamton University and then two other of my colleagues from New York Best. So our team is really all about manufacturing and supply chain, and it's really, the work is to identify existing excellent manufacturers and to bring them into the fold in terms of the opportunities that are here as part of the, as batteries, become everywhere and in vehicles and on the grid, at grid scale storage, there are huge opportunities. And so we are really all about connecting the dots and bringing people into the opportunity. Snapshot of some of the players in the state of New York at this point, kind of from upstream to the mining, and well, there's no mining, but there is materials production. And Novion makes synthetic graphite. Companies that you see represented here are all over the state and have their piece of what they do in the business they're in, and roughly you can see where they fit into the supply chain. Our job is to continue to build out the number of companies in this space and to help attract new ones into the space. So why energy storage, and why the interest in the growth of energy storage as the loads have changed? So EVs, charging stations, put new demands on the grid. Certainly, the growth in manufacturing, the big chip making facilities have new load growth. The U.S., I just heard, is in an overall growth mode on load on the grid for the first time in about 2 decades. So there are definite changes afoot. You add to that this is happening at a time when a lot of the grids, a lot of the states have very strong programs, particularly, I will say New York State has a very strong program to have 70% of our power from renewable sources by 2030. We're on a path to do that. And so those sources need firming and support from devices like energy storage. And so there's a huge opportunity. You can deploy a battery faster than you can build a power plant. So it's kind of the last message, and next to Ray.
All right, thanks, John. So, when I came on, I come from manufacturing. I like to tell the joke that I knew what AA batteries were a year and a half ago. And, our goal was to try to engage manufacturers to understand that there's a new market developing out there, and for them to, look at their portfolio of what they're supplying. And energy storage is definitely one that we wanted to look into. So energy storage can be considered, if we go back, I'm just going to bounce back a couple of slides. We specifically, these are some of the applications once you have the cells. And so there's electric vehicles and there's defense, aviation, but we decided to, put a presentation together based upon stationary storage. And stationary storage can be down on a residential level, or it could be big, up to large grid scale. And so this presentation, I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. It's just to give a flavor for manufacturers out there to realize that there's a role that they can play and an opportunity they could have in the supply chain for these applications. Steering problem, sorry. Just to give a little bit of an overview of what the inside of one of these large containers looks like. Basically you've got a big array of battery packs and you've got some control units, and then there's a lot more that goes in the container. We're going to walk through it starting at the bottom. So the cells, there is limited manufacturing, especially in New York State, but we do have several companies that are making battery cells. The supply chain's a little bit limited. The opportunities may be a little bit limited, but basically there's typically out there cylindrical cells, prismatic cells, and pouch cells. I do encourage people, if they wanted to Google RIT Battery Development Center or Battery Prototyping Center, we do sponsor a free 2-day hands-on training that they can go up and actually work on making some of these. And the grants that we work under makes that training for free. So that is an opportunity. I think there's one coming up in September and November. But those cells go together into packs and modules. And this is where a lot more applications. There are a lot of companies in New York State that are making packs and modules and building things above that. Most companies that are doing it aren't making the cells. They're building the packs and modules and using other people's cells. And a lot of those companies are just doing assembly work. So they're sourcing all the other components, which are often injection molded parts, bus bars, small cabling and harnesses, some circuit boards and sensors. Those packs and modules go into stacks that go inside these containers. Those stacks have racking systems that we have Southern Tier New York manufacturers making those racking systems. You got power cables and data cables and other opportunities. Those racking systems, the packs and the whole system are controlled by what they call a battery management system. There's usually 3 layers to the battery management system, but this is the part of the system that works on optimizing the cells, keeping them balanced, making sure everything's safe and charged properly. Battery management systems present opportunities. We have people that are designing and manufacturing BMSs alone. Then there's also power conversion systems. And again, the people that are putting together power conversion systems aren't necessarily making all the parts of the power conversion systems, but there's large supercapacitors often in them, circuit boards, a lot of metal fabricated parts, and other similar opportunities. And then the container alone, the container itself has a lot of ancillary parts to it. So there's usually HVAC systems on there, gas sensors, ventilation systems, fire suppression. Again, for we have a lot of manufacturers that can do these sort of systems, but have not necessarily done them in these applications. And that's what we're doing, is we're trying to make people aware and introduce them to opportunities. And then just a little bit of a pictorial of some of the other parts that you'll see in there. Again, battery connectors, displays, bus bars are very prominent in these enclosures. There's a lot of stamped metal parts, machine parts, injection molded parts. This is kind of a listing of the types of suppliers that we're engaging with. That ultimately what we end up doing is making connections with people with opportunities and people that are looking for things. So we do have pack manufacturers that have come into the country that have provided us with bills of materials and drawings. We're helping them find local and regional sources for those. And these are typically the types of suppliers that they're looking for. And then, as John mentioned, we do have a grant-funded industry-specific supply chain database. The web address for it is at the bottom. And again, this presentation will be made available for people. But this database is free to register yourself in, and it's free to access to search in as well. It is an application-based, so it's a ground-up database. We have not downloaded a bunch of companies and created a large list that haven't been vetted. This is people apply and put their application in with all their information. And then from the picture of the supply chain team that you saw earlier in the presentation, typically you would expect somebody from that supply chain team to make contact with you. We would validate your capabilities, and then we would end up accepting the application and you would go live within the database.